Let's talk about something that lives beneath the surface of so many relationships but rarely gets the attention it deserves. The push-pull dynamic created by our attachment styles. Now, I'm not just talking about surface level compatibility. I'm talking about the invisible forces that drive connection, fear, and ultimately separation. When we look at the anxious avoidant trap, what we're really looking at is a psychological and emotional dance that keeps two people locked in tension, not because they don't care, but because of how they've learned to protect themselves. The anxious person is wired to seek closeness. Deep inside, there's a fear of being abandoned, unloved, or forgotten. That fear doesn't make them weak. It makes them hyper-attuned to emotional shifts, always on the lookout for signs of disconnection. They're often the ones texting first, over-explaining, over-giving, and losing sleep, wondering what they did wrong. They're not needy, they're reactive. Their nervous system is constantly scanning for safety. On the other side, the avoidant is equally affected, just in a different direction. Their early programming taught them that closeness can be suffocating, unpredictable, or even dangerous. So when intimacy grows, they pull back, not because they don't care, but because their nervous system interprets vulnerability as a threat. They need space, but they rarely know how to ask for it in a way that builds trust. Instead, they shut down, deflect, disappear. This creates the cycle. The more the anxious partner reaches out, the more the avoidant withdraws. The more the avoidant pulls away, the more the anxious panics and pursues. It's a feedback loop, a system. And like any system, it stays alive until one person wakes up to the pattern and decides to interrupt it. This isn't about blame. No one chooses their attachment wounds. But we do choose whether we remain unconscious to them. And here's the kicker. When you don't understand what's really happening in this dynamic, you mistake your partner's behavior for love or lack of love. You take it personally, you react instead of respond, and the cycle spins faster. Now, when the anxious person finally becomes aware of the pattern, when they say, I can't keep losing myself to be close to someone who's afraid of closeness, something powerful happens. They stop chasing, they stop over-permissioning, and that's when the shift begins. The anxious person isn't just stepping away from a partner. They're stepping out of a story they've been telling themselves since childhood. And the avoidant? They often don't feel the loss immediately, but when the silence settles in, when the mirror goes dark, that's when their own internal reckoning begins. Because the anxious was never the problem, they were the mirror. And once that mirror is gone, the avoidant is left to face the emptiness they've been avoiding all along. You want to break the cycle? Start by recognizing the pattern. Understand it, name it. Own your part in it, because when we become conscious of the roles we're playing, we finally have the power to rewrite the script. You can't heal what you keep reenacting. Awareness is the first act of liberation. Here's where things start to change, really change. When the anxious person finally walks away, it's not a moment of weakness. It's not a tantrum. It's not manipulation. It's the result of a slow-burning realization. I can't keep bleeding just to keep someone else comfortable. And that moment right there, that's when the entire dynamic flips. Because when the one who's always chased, always pleaded, always tried to hold the connection together, finally chooses to let go, the balance of power shifts. And for the avoidant, that shift is seismic. See, the avoidant often moves through relationships with a sense of control, not consciously in a manipulative way, but as a survival mechanism. The less they invest, the safer they feel. They mistake distance for freedom. And as long as the anxious partner is still pursuing, texting, explaining, forgiving, waiting, they're insulated from the true impact of disconnection. They get the illusion of intimacy on their own term. But once the anxious person truly stops, not just threatens to leave, but actually detaches with clarity and peace, that illusion breaks. And what's left is silence, emptiness, a mirror. This is what I call the emotional boomerang, because the very thing the avoidant fears, Being overwhelmed, being vulnerable, being seen is no longer on the table. And that's when they feel the absence, not just of the person, but of the pattern.